So me and Bryce McDonald came up to Lake St. Clair this week. It's my first ever trip up here. It's the middle of the summer, middle of July, and the fish are transitioning to offshore structure, starting to set up out deep. You know, this is a new place for us, so we've really had to look hard this week for some fish. You can see the lake there in the background.
Look at that. This is a 429.
Still got 8.5 pounds of 2 fish.
I got one just as big as that one.
You know, I love to go somewhere new, the adventure that awaits, you know, the place that you've never been, the sights that you've never seen. You know, and St. Clair didn't disappoint in that way. It's probably one of the more beautiful lakes that you could visit. The St. Clair River just has its own vibe, its own deal. You know, it feels like you're in Key West. You know, just the scenery and the way the houses are painted, it's just an awesome place. You know, Lake St. Clair is easily one of my favorite places that I've ever visited to go bass fishing. The sand, it smells like Florida, but you know, in that way, the St. Clair River is just one of the most awesome places that I've been, and I can't wait to get back to explore that St. Clair River some more because, you know, I just know there are trophy smallmouth that live in that river as well. Going into this trip, you know, our plan was to spend the mornings up the St. Clair River to see if we could get something going up there. Most of what we caught up the river was largemouth particularly, and you know, we found one spot. I was throwing the S-Waver 168 and one of my favorite glide baits, and you know, just had fish coming up all over the lake, you know, trying to eat that thing. You know, of course we caught a couple pike. This trip was the first pike that I've ever landed in my life, but Bryce also caught a pike, so it was a pretty cool trip in that way, just, you know, for us to catch some different species. You know, Bryce is about as good at catching greenfish as anybody you ever get in a boat with. And, you know, around the mainlands and largemouth territory, man, he just wore the greenfish out.
They dig so hard, they fight like a smallmouth.
But we ended up, you know, out on the main lake, and you know, Bryce caught the first smallmouth, and you know, we started to catch a few, but you know, just struggled at first to really find some quality fish. You know, Lake St. Clair's full of smallmouth, so you know, you catch a lot of fish. In some spots, you have to weed through the fish to find the quality. You know, we were blessed with awesome weather this week. We had waves 2 feet or less just about all week. We had one evening maybe where it got up to 1 to 3s, but we had a little bit of rain one day. But other than that, we just had an awesome week of weather. You know, usually when you travel north, sometimes you lose a day to wind or storms or whatever be the case. But, you know, on this trip, we just got lucky.
Yeah.
So a big part of every trip up north now is Livescope and active target. You know, the forward-facing sonar has been a game changer in terms of bass fishing, especially on lakes like St. Clair. You know, almost all the fish we caught throughout the week were fish that we saw on Livescope. You would see those fish, you could flip to those fish at distance, you could watch your bait fall, they'd swim directly to it and eat it.
No, I don't see any more either. Yep.
There you go.
Good one. Dang.
I didn't know where he went, but I found him pretty quick.
Solid one too, dude. This you want me to do?
You did probably that. We're drifting fast.
We thought we'd catch one over here.
We really wanted to focus on just catching fish, learning the lake, and having a good time. Whatever happened Saturday happened, you know, and we just happened to catch a lot of fish Monday through Friday. But like I said, laying on those spots that I went back and fished probably hurt me just a little bit. Nonetheless, we had an awesome trip, learned a ton about Livescope. You know, Bryce is as good with Livescope as anybody that I've been in the boat with.
There's some.
Me personally, I prefer active target. Now, a couple things here. Number one, I'm running active target on a 12-inch carbon, so I've got a little bigger screen on the 12 than I do on the 10, the GPS map 1022 that I'm running the Livescope on. You know, I ran Livescope by itself, had no complaints. When I went to active target this year, just to kind of see the comparison, me personally, I like active target a little bit better. If you ask Bryce McDonald, he'd tell you he likes his Garmin better than active target. So, you know, I think they're really close. It's a matter of opinion. It's a matter of your preference. You know, what your settings, I think, have a lot to do with what you like, how it's set up. So, you know, nonetheless, incredible tool, game changer in terms of bass fishing on lakes like St. Clair. It's going to be hard to compete with those guys that can see fish that maybe you can't see if you don't have this technology. You know, in my opinion, the game's always evolving, whether it be lures, tackle, boats, you know, electronics. And those that stay at the top of the game are those that are going to evolve and continuously learn all of these new advances that come about in the game.
There's one. Right, little one. Or is that a piece of grass? There's 3 there, wasn't there? Yeah, they're little.
You know, it's crazy when you watch those fish eat, you know, when you set the hook, you can see those fish fighting off the bottom as you bring them up. You know, Livescope is just awesome.
That should keep, shouldn't it?
So you're watching us catch some walleye here out in open water right off the main shipping channel, you know, and those walleye would pack up along with the perch and you know, sometimes you could find some bass out here also grouped up. But it seemed like we ran into walleye just about everywhere we stopped, you know, and we got to a point we had to try to catch a few. You know, Bryce wanted to fillet some, and you know, there's no better eating fish in my opinion than walleye caught fresh from the lake. So here we're just using a Berkeley flatworm, you know, on a drop shot, and we're using Livescope to pitch right to them just like we were the bass. So there's no real secret here aside from seeing the fish and being able to flip on them. But the longer that you fish, you know, for all these different species, and you can see on the bottom with the Livescope, you can tell the difference in the way the fish are oriented to the bottom, the shape of the fish, the way they swim. You know, Livescope's just an incredible tool. The more I use it, the better I get. So if I give anyone advice, you know, you just have to put seat time out there on the water using it. Now, I don't know how it is in your boat, but in my boat, if it's bass, big bass especially, we'll net for each other. But if it's a walleye or a catfish or drum or something else, you got to net it yourself. But you've got to be on it right here. You know, the wind's blowing just a little bit, and it's just enough to blow you quite a bit of distance, you know, in the time that it takes to land a fish. So, you know, when one gets a fish hooked up, you know, grab the net, get it for the other guy, and then, you know, somebody's got to man the trolling motor or hit spot lock, you know, to try to keep you on point. You know, I love catching fish in open water. It's probably my favorite way to catch fish up north. You know, you have to locate that structure, usually with your electronics. Then you have to use your electronics, your mapping, your forward-facing sonar, you know, and other tools to try to stay on that structure, you know, and it's easy when you're drifting and you hook a fish and, you know, on a day like this where you got a little bit of wind and it can blow you, you know, 50, 100 yards off that spot. So really, I don't know how we fished before we had spot lock on our trolling motors.
Unless you want to do that. That's a fish now. He might be picture worthy.
I don't know. Doesn't feel like it. Feels like a walleye. He's there. Decent. Decent. Everybody likes fish catches. We're going to take a look at a bunch of fish catches here out in open water, caught on the GoPro Max using the Livescope. You can tell by listening to the conversation, you know, we're pinpointing these fish, casting to them, and hooking them almost immediately.
Yeah. Yo, so good. Now we're talking like maybe.
You know, the next best thing to having a cameraman on the boat is that GoPro Max 360. It's a little bit more work editing on the back end when you have to rip those clips and point the camera. And nonetheless, it gives you some awesome shots and awesome perspective of those catches from that day.
No, I'm good. I saw it when you turned the head and threw.
You know, Bryce may or may not have caught a drum right here. We won't talk about it. But one thing I did notice in comparison to Lake Erie is you did seem to catch a lot fewer what we call sheephead or drum in Lake St. Clair than you did on Lake Erie. You know, with smallmouth and open water, always take your time, but regardless of the fact, you do not land them all.
Finally, yeah.
You know, both of us are using fluorocarbon to a braid leader. Me, I've got 12-pound fluoro to an 8-pound Seaguar red label leader. And, you know, Bryce is doing a similar setup. I'm tying an FG knot, Bryce is tying a double uni, and it's just two different approaches to accomplish the same goal. We know it's going to take probably 24, 25 pounds in that BFL to have a chance. So we got to go out and look for some more quality fish today, see what we can get after. But you know, yesterday we finally found some rock piles. There aren't a whole lot of rocks in this lake, and as in comparison to Lake Erie, you know, Lake Erie is a rock quarry, a limestone rock quarry compared to this. This is a beach. So the Detroit River separates what are really two different fisheries, in my opinion, how they set up. You know, Bryce had a nice bag of 5 fish. He caught about 18 pounds over in Canada on day 2. You know, and we had 2 or 3 really solid days out on this spot and other spots that were like this. You know, we just struggled to find those 5+ pound fish, and those are the fish that it takes to win on Saturdays, you know, in BFLs on Lake St. Clair. You know, St. Clair's a unique place for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons is the boat traffic, you know, and you get out on a rock pile in Canada and you're often sitting there with 4 or 5 other boats fishing that same rock pile. That's a big one. How big is that?
It's close. That's thicker than the ones yesterday.
Let's use the other scale on him too.
Dang. That's a stud.
That one scale's still on the floor, isn't it? Here's a new one.
under your weight, too.
Damn, my bait.
That's a 4 or something.
He's heavy. I'll put him in. St. Clair, that's what you come up here for.
This one's bigger than the last. That just doesn't even look right, does it?
You can't not fish through the whole bottom of my friend. That's a big one. That's a big one. How big is that?
It's close.
Our last practice day Friday, hoping to fish the BFL tomorrow on Lake St. Clair. Friday night boat prep, BFL in the morning. It's pretty safe to say it's probably going to be a drop shot bite unless the weather goes to crap. But our go-to bait this week's been a drop shot. You know, that seemed to be the thing that got it done for us most often. We've got on a couple good other bites with largemouth, you know, in the St. Clair River. Glide bait's been good to us. Caught them on a spinnerbait, caught them on a wacky rig, caught them on several things. So, you know, the one thing that I love about this lake is there's a ton of ways to catch fish. You know, running up the St. Clair River, we had to run in with a pike. Out in the middle of the lake yesterday, we actually saw a big muskie on the bottom. So Bryce has caught a perch, he's caught a white bass, he's caught a walleye, caught a largemouth, a smallmouth. So I believe he's caught every species in the lake this week on that drop shot. So let's talk starter batteries for a minute. You know, I started the season and I thought I'll go pick up the AGM. It was about $250 and I'll save some money and that will run all my electronics. You know, I'm using the Garmin Livescope and I'm using the Lowrance with the active target, running two 12-inch Lowrance units. So, you know, no doubt a lot of demand for some battery power. And the one thing I would say, the AGM, it's awesome for one day. If you fish consecutive days, the AGM is not so awesome because sometimes it takes multiple days for that battery to charge back after you've put it to the test.
Number 128! Don't get to up 128. Oh, number 129! I see you 129. Oh, number 130! You're up 130. Oh, number 131! And that's the 131. Oh, number 132!
You know, Derby Day, let's sum it up. Tournaments are all about making great decisions, having a great game plan, executing that game plan, and sticking with that game plan. So I drew out with Robert from Port Clinton, Ohio, which was awesome. You know, wanted to make sure I got him a shout out in the video, so I got you here, Robert. But, you know, me and Robert had similar fishing experiences on Lake Erie, you know, which I said before is a rock pile compared to St. Clair, which is a beach. So I wanted to start on the South Shore first thing in the morning to try to get 5 fish. My goal was for both me and my co-angler to have 5 fish in the boat. And then we would run back and try to relocate that school of 4 to 4.5 pounders that we found, you know, off the shipping channel. So, you know, early in the morning, it was cloudy, and cloudy for me is always typically a reaction bite. You know, you need to pick up the crankbait or something to try to draw that reaction bite. You know, for me, the best smallmouth bite in the Great Lakes in my life is early to mid-afternoon when the sun is high. You know, this morning we didn't have that luxury. So my co-angler starts out with a crankbait. I told him I thought it was a great move. He catches one first cast, but couldn't really seem to get anything else going on that crankbait. You know, the sun starts to poke through, and the bites seem to get a little bit better with the sun continuing to pop out. You know, my co-angler really got off to a great start. His drop shot bait was definitely hotter than my flatworm. You know, we've been out here for previous days, and, you know, these fish do get educated, but the flatworm just wasn't getting it done on this morning.
We'll take them like that all day long, won't we?
So, you know, one of the great lessons that my father taught me, you know, out on the lake, you know, sometime you're going to need help. Sometime your boat's going to have an issue. You're going to need something on the water. And, you know, that good karma often pays dividends. And, you know, here, one of the fellas out on the water, you know, wrapped his line around his trolling motor, couldn't get his prop off, and, you know, I had a tool. I don't think the tool helped him. I think his co-angler ended up having the tool that helped fix it. You know, on the Great Lakes, or even the little Great Lake that is Lake St. Clair, it's never a good thing when you have to measure those smallmouth. Even though they have to be 14 inches, the ones that you need to win, you don't have to measure. You know, at 10:30, I had 4 fish. I had a chance at 5. I lost a 3-pounder at the boat, and my co-angler had 5 fish. So, you know, I felt like it was time to go. And, you know, fishing the Great Lakes in that clear water, they will get boat weary. They'll move on you, and they feel the pressure. I feel like when you pull up on a school, oftentimes you'll catch the biggest one first, and then the pressure will push them off, and it'll be hard to get those big bites again, at least in that clear water. So, you know, on tournament day, I pull up here, catch 3 walleye in a row. You can tell they're walleye on the Livescope. The smallmouth that were here the day before had moved. They were gone. You know, when that happens, the best thing you can do is just start making big circles. So, you know, like I said, if I had to do over, I would have stayed on the South Shore, stayed on, you know, that community hole, and just cast him arm off, and, you know, we would have seen what happened. But, you know, anyway, all in all, excellent trip to Lake St. Clair. You know, I know these are walleye. I can tell they're walleye on the Livescope. As soon as they hit the bait, the way they fight, you can tell they're walleye. So, and I found 1 smallmouth on the Livescope out there, but that was it.
Saturday is the only day that I encountered fish that seemed to just swim with the drop shot and not eat it. I think it was because it was a little bit cloudy early. And also I think some of those fish were probably hook sored. You know, we went in late on some of our spots that we had throughout the week. You know, we didn't find those 25-pound spots. So the spots that we were fishing, we felt like were probably 18 to 20-pound spots.
I appreciate you watching, appreciate your time. Be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications.